Justin Vacula here, reporting live and on the scene from the Empowering Women Through Secularism conference in Dublin, Ireland, and I'm here with
Ann Brusseel.
So would you tell the listeners some about yourself?
Well, I'm a secularist, I'm a free thinker, also an atheist, which isn't always the same thing, but as a liberal Democrat from Flanders, I'm a member of the Flemish parliament. I try to promote secular values, and I try to find solutions for certain problems we experience in Flanders, in Europe, regarding the secular state and the fact that some institutions do neglect the rule of law, legislation we have on, for instance, abortion, euthanasia, gay rights was a bit of a topic, but it's getting sorted out. I mean, it's much better. The situation is much better now. But I'm really committed to certain causes to promote free thinking as a whole and as a philosophy in society.
So what brought you to be an active politician, actually not only getting involved in the process of being involved with issues, but as a lawmaker? What brought you to that position?
Well, first of all, it was the commitment to the liberal ideology that made me attend meetings of the political Liberal Party in Belgium. And I think that politics is fascinating. It is quite difficult sometimes to achieve your goals in politics. You have to learn how it works, and that's very interesting. It sort of tempted me a couple of years ago to discover that kind of work, and I'm very happy I had the opportunity to do it.
So you mentioned liberalism. Can you give the quick definition or some term about that to our audience, which is mostly from the United States?
Yes, sure. Because there might be some different views on what being liberal is throughout Europe and the United States. The Belgian liberals are in favor of the free market, of course. They are also in favor of a correct social welfare. That means that we don't disapprove of solidarity and public means for important things in life like healthcare, education, and so on. Well, those are the basic concerns we have. But economically speaking, we are supportive of the free market and the open economy. On an ethic level, we are not comparable to, let's say, the English conservatives, but we are the progressive party in Belgium who, together with some left-wingers, promoted secular issues and secular laws, such as having a more liberal and free legislation on divorce, on abortion, on human rights, and other topics that concern more the ethic than other levels.
Okay, good overview, thank you. So now, what brought you to this conference? How did you get involved with the Empowering Women Through Secularism conference?
Oh, it's well, that's a modern kind of way of getting involved. I met Michael Nugent on Facebook.
Oh.
So how did I get involved? Well, I guess by being active on social media, blogging and so on, and looking also to learn more about the positions and the actions of secular movements abroad. So I try to be active in Belgium, but also I'm also interested in seeing what other countries do on that topic.
Okay, great. So speaking of that, that moves us into your session, which was session 3, Separation of Church and State. It was chaired by Helen O'Shea. You were one of the panelists. Annie Laurie Gaylor, Elida Radig, and Michael Nugent were the other panelists. So can you talk about the panel?
It was a very interesting panel. I learned quite a lot during the whole weekend, by the way, because I didn't know that the American situation was so complex, and Annie Laurie told us about that. Michael Nugent gave us more information on Ireland and the specific problems here, which are far more bigger than in the rest of the EU, I have the impression, apart from some member states that are regressing now, such as Poland and Hungary. But I will perhaps explain a little bit more about the talk I did, because that's just the topic I know best, of course.
Right.
So I try to give an overview of the secular status, let's say, of the EU, and after doing some research, I noticed that it is very difficult to make a synopsis of the European situation. All member states have different approaches. You could say that some member states have a constitutional separation between church and state in some dimensions. For instance, France has a clear reference in its constitution to the secular states. In the First Amendment, they state that they are an État laïque. They don't subsidize religions. They don't pay salaries. They have had a law that legalized abortion in 1975, so that's quite soon. But on the other hand, the uprise of the Catholic Church now in France is well, a bit, let's say, worrying to free thinkers, because it's mainly anti-gay as a manifestation of conservatives asks for the abolish the right that gay people should have on marriage, etc. In Belgium, we have, let's say, a reference to the separation of church and state in the constitution, but it isn't really a clear reference, and it offers the possibility for Catholic institutions to be very active in certain dimensions of our society. So in order to make an analysis of the situation, separation between church and state in Europe, you shouldn't only look at constitutional concepts, but also at the various dimensions. What do social services do? What is your health care like? Are the laws on abortion and euthanasia applied, yes or no? What is the school system like? And is there an active view on the neutrality of the state? So, for example, do civil servants wear a headscarf, a crucifix, or not? For example, in France, it's totally forbidden. In the UK, you can wear your religious symbols, you can wear the Sikh turban, or even the headscarf. In Belgium, the legislation is not clear about it, as for many things. And,
well, I guess you'll be working on those, huh?
Yes, we are working. As a matter of fact, I proposed, I made a proposition in Parliament a couple of weeks ago regarding the neutrality of public authorities and civil servants. And unfortunately, the socialists were against my proposition. I wanted to take action because the city of Ghent had abolished the rule that it was forbidden to wear religious symbols as a civil servant, whereas in other cities it is there is a rule in in Antwerp that says you can't wear the headscarf when you have to when you're having contact with citizens that come to the town hall, for example. In a lot of other municipalities and cities, there's no clear legislation about it. But I wanted to make things clear for once and for all, not only for the civil servants in municipalities, but also for the civil servants that work for the community of Flanders as a whole, so for what we call our state within the federal state. While my socialist friends wouldn't vote on the neutrality bill because they stated that our Islamic community, our Muslim community, should not be discriminated by that sort of laws. And I was a bit disappointed because all those decades ago we worked together on the first principles of the secular state. Liberals and socialists, we fought together, and we achieved quite something. We made progress. We have modern modern laws on ethic issues, like abortion, like euthanasia, like the marriage of gay people, the right to adopt a child as a gay couple, and so on. And we were always on this together because there was also a great, let's say, a large Catholic community that was opposed to that liberal kind of thinking, of course. But now, as the socialists and other left-wing parties like the Greens fear to lose the votes of the Muslim community, they don't dare to speak up anymore and to defend the secular values that we were fighting for together a while ago. So that's a bit disappointing because I think that the neutrality of government and of public institutions is good for society and for every citizen. It isn't only good for free thinkers or atheists. When you go when you need as a citizen a service from the public authorities, you don't want to get the feeling that you're not being served as well as you should be because of your convictions or because of the convictions of the person sitting in front of you. I think that's an important thing an important argument to consider. The state should always appear as impartial and neutral in front of all its citizens. It is a citizen that can have different private convictions, not the state, and not the person reincarnating the state. So that was a huge discussion in the media, in the Belgian media, and in Parliament. And
that brings us into our next panel. We had the workshop about separation of church and state, and we had worked on finalizing a declaration.
Yeah, indeed.
So we had 3 bullet points, is that right, that we had to come up with?
Yes, and that was a bit difficult because we could have written 30 bullet points as well. So the first thing, as a matter of fact, is to have clear mention of what secularism is in the Constitution. So, for example, like France mentions clearly that it is a secular state. But that is not enough. Our second point was regarding, let's say, most Western democracies, that the rest of the legislation should also be impartial and thus secular and, above all, applied by all institutions. I tried to explain last days that it's nice to have a secular constitution, but if the civil society is
not following the law,
is not following and is financially stronger than some of your state healthcare institutions, for instance, then it's difficult to have your laws implemented in every institution. Talk about healthcare in Belgium. We have a very clear law on the right to abortion, and we have a kind of pro-choice law, but many hospitals in Belgium don't leave you any choice. So that's the problem, and that's why we concluded that it is good to have legislation that recognizes individual freedom and decision of what you do with your own body. But if those institutions don't respect the legislation, you have a huge problem. So social services, healthcare, and education should respect the law. And
that was for the democratic nations, right?
That was for the democratic nations. For the non-democratic nations, it was a little more difficult because the challenges are even bigger and the situation is more complex, and we can make nice declarations, but the implementation is quite difficult. So I think that for those countries who struggle with theocratic regimes, first thing is to have access to information and to education, free and unlimited and unrestricted, so for everyone. And secondly, those states should also respect human rights. And of course, if they're not really intended to do so, the international community should be more vigilant and intervene when necessary and take action when necessary. That was our conclusion regarding the non-democratic states. And for Ireland, we took a closer look at the constitution and noticed that, well, it is the basis of all problems. It is the start of all problems, because when your constitution is clearly built on a holy trinity and is full of religious references, and your whole legislation is built on that ideology, you will find it very difficult to change the law on, for instance, abortion and let's say family planning, reproductive rights as a whole. It's not only abortion, it's also anti-conception, etc. For Ireland, you really need, first of all, a better educational system that is freed from the Catholic dominance. So the state should take a closer look at what education should offer here as a minimum. And the legislation should be freed of all these religious references and start taking a look at reality, facts and figures on abortion, on the many women going to England for an abortion, etc. That is first thing for Ireland to do. If you have a good constitution, it is impossible as a representative in Parliament to always refer to the constitution as the highest moral code. If it is not religious anymore, you will have to come up with better arguments than to say that the Catholic Church has asked you to support the pro-life movement, for instance.
God told us to do so.
Yes.
the
yes.
ultimate end of the argument.
Exactly.
In some minds. So.
Yes. That's a good conclusion.
So what are some of your final thoughts here on the conference as we're closing up?
I think we've ended up with some very practical suggestions, and I hope that all the activists that I've heard and seen the last days have the courage and have the network to promote the ideals and also the very practical ideas that came up here in the last days in their country, in their networks, and to take another step forward by the time we organize our next conference.
In 2 years, another 2 years.
Yeah, you need strong, I think, strong arguments, and you need to do some lobbying and have a good communication strategy to wake up people, because the people are far more secular than some of our institutions are.
All right, and for listeners to find you, can you please tell us about your online presence?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook and on Twitter, so you will find me typing Ann, that's Ann, Brusseel, and that's Brusseel, a bit like Brussels.
So your Twitter handle?
Sorry?
Your
Yes.
Twitter handle?
Yes, it is.
That's your
Ann
name?
Brusseel,
Yes. And a website?
The website is the same. It's www.ann, A-N-N, Brusseel is BRUSSEL.be.
All right, and thank you for chatting with me here at the conference.
You're welcome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.